appreciate you joining me as always. And we've got a busy show for you today, folks. We've got a lot of things that we're going to be breaking down and dissecting over the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to talk about the Washington Commanders draft. What did you think about the Washington Commanders draft? Because I think they had a very good draft. So we're going to break that down and talk about some of the picks and what should be some of the expectations for these young players coming in to help a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year ascend to get to the Super Bowl. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, the big news yesterday, the stadium. Yes, folks, Washington is going to be moving back into D.C., rightfully so. They're coming home. And you have to say that because this is one of the storied franchises in all of the NFL, one of the older franchises. And they're known for Washington. They're known for, a stadium that is no longer there where this new stadium will be at the old grounds of RFK. Well, we're going to talk about that because you should be really excited right now if you are a Commanders fan. This organization over the last 2 years has done something that I don't think any of us thought they were going to do. Whether you're a fan or you're a media person like myself, what they've done over the last 2 years is nothing short of remarkable. So to be able to go out and, get to an NFC Championship game, something that a lot of younger folks, if you're 35 or under, you don't know what that was like. So you witnessed that last year. They have a franchise quarterback now in Jaden Daniels. They have a really strong coaching staff led by Dan Quinn. They have a quality front office and great GM, young GM and Adam Peters, and they have an owner who's shelling out money. So if you are a Commanders fan, you should be really happy about that. So we'll talk about that. And then if we have time today, I want to talk about who I think Josh, when you think about Josh Harris, the owner, who is he? Who is he technically in retrospect? So we're going to talk about that. Of course, folks, if you want to call into today's program, all you have to do is dial in at 1-800-450-7876, and we'll take some of your calls if you want to call in and chime in on the good news. If you're a Commanders fan, call on in. Remember, folks, this is airing right now on WOL 1450 AM and 95.9 FM. So appreciate all the good folks here at WOL and Radio 1 for making this thing happen. So let's get right into it. I spent 3 days in Ashburn, last week, starting on Thursday all the way through Saturday, watching this team maneuver, watching this team, meaning the Commanders. They only had 5 draft picks, and they literally made it happen. And so, hey, we already got a phone line lit up right now, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to bring in our callers. We got my good friend Rio on the line. Folks, if you don't know who Rio Robinson is, he's got one of the best, if not the best, online presence for the Commanders as far as content creators. Rio, my brother, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? We had another successful draft under Adam Peters. The stadium announcement, all is well in Commander land right now.
Yeah, man. And for a guy like yourself who's under 40, not like an old head like myself, but for you under 40, man, you've got to be on cloud nine because the last year and a half has just been almost absurd with the amount of good, positive news that's coming through. What's your take on that right now?
It's been nonstop euphoria, just removing an owner and immediately everything turning around and the team being in ascension, a franchise quarterback, a 12-win season, the NFC Championship, back-to-back good drafts, the team's getting better, and now state-of-the-art new dome coming to Washington, D.C. It feels like a dream right now. Don't wake me up, Blake.
Well, I did want to ask you because – I'm old school. I remember RFK rocking and literally jumping up and down in there. And it was an outdoor stadium, though. And I understand with the way money flows now and, you want to have year-round venues. Are you okay with this being a dome, an indoor stadium?
It is the only way it needs to be. This is going to be the centerpiece of the nation's capital. They want to host the World Cup. They want to host the Olympics, WrestleMania, the Final Four, and year-long events. And it's a weather-controlled environment. You're spending almost $4 billion on a stadium no one should ever be rained on, snowed on, or sweating inside of the venue. It had to be a dome. There was always going to be a roof on this stadium, Lee.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, is that you have to think about it. When you look at, say, for instance, Dallas, a team we won't mention too many times on this program, but let's just say for the sake of the day, AT&T Stadium down there in Texas, it's just a monster mammoth stadium. And, you and I talked about, and folks, I'm talking with Rio Robinson, does a great job on the Rambling with Rio podcast. Make sure you check that out on YouTube. Literally the best content creator in town. So when you think about that stadium down there, because it's so big, it allows for the opposing team's fans to take over. And we saw that at now Northwest Stadium, when it was formerly FedEx and it was so large. Remember, they took all those seats out. But before, it just allowed for other teams' fans to come in. And then if your product's not that good on the field, they're really going to take over. So hopefully with this new dome stadium, I saw the seating, Rio, was at 65,000. I think that is brilliant. It's perfect because it means it's going to be 65,000 Commanders fans in there.
Right, and it needs to be that way. And that's like the minimum that you need to host the Super Bowl. That's all that it needs to be. 90,000, 80,000. Leave that to college campuses where they can fill it up with students, alumni, and boosters. NFL stadiums do not need to be that large, and there's always ways that you can finesse it to add more or add less seats. 65,000 is perfect.
It's crazy, man, because me being a Penn State guy, a Penn State alum, I always brag about how big, Beaver Stadium is, over 115,000. And then when the team I cover here in town, the Commanders, I'm sitting here saying I don't want a large stadium. So you're right. Leave that to college. Leave that to my schools, other Big Ten schools. But as far as the NFL venues, I just think the quaint stadiums like, M&T Bank Stadium up the road in Baltimore. I think the Link in Philadelphia. I even think, it's not Heinz Field anymore in Pittsburgh, but whatever that stadium. I just think that they're quaint stadiums, and there's a reason why they have the majority of their fan base in those.
Yeah, man, I like it. It's crazy that this stadium news is so gargantuan that we forgot that we had a draft just 1 or 2 days ago, late.
You know what I mean? And I said when we came on that was the first thing I wanted to break down. So let's go right into that. I was there for 3 days, and first night I was there till 1:45 a.m. I mean, it was late. And I'm not used to picking that late. But guess what? I think that's going to be the norm around town now. I think that's going to be the norm for this team because they have legit Super Bowl aspirations and having long, deep runs into the playoffs. So we're going to be picking late a lot. So what did they do with that late first-round pick? They take an offensive lineman, Josh Connolly Jr. out of Oregon, and I'm trying to tell people, I'm a Big Ten guy. I watched him battle Abdul Carter. I watched him go up against some of those Michigan guys.
Handle them.
Absolutely, and he more than held his own. And he's only 21. He just turned 21 in November. So you can't tell me that was a brilliant move by Washington. And for all the fans out there that were upset and, you need an edge rusher, no, you want to shore up your offensive line because your biggest asset is what? Your quarterback. That's a great pick.
Yeah, they've let you know that the entire offseason plan, the number one priority this offseason is to protect your investment, protect your young franchise quarterback. They acquire Laramie Tunsil. He should count as a draft pick as well as a third and seventh round pick this year. And Deebo Samuel also counts as a draft pick. Marshawn Lattimore also counts as a draft pick. It's clear that when Adam Peters took over this organization, he looked at the athleticism and the speed on the team and said it's not enough.
It was lacking.
We haven't drafted a player in athletic score under 8. If your speed girl.
All right, so Rio's breaking up just a tad there, so we'll get him squared away there. But yeah, I mean, what he's saying is making brilliant and perfect sense. Washington, when Adam Peters was brought here as the GM, remember, he didn't have Dan Quinn yet. He had to go out and get his coach. But he looked at this roster and he saw that this roster was devoid of talent and it was devoid of athleticism. So, Rio, you back with us? All right, so we'll get him on. But yeah, this roster was devoid of talent and athleticism, and that's something that they've spent a lot of time and effort in boosting, basically making it better. And more importantly, when you look at what they were going up against last year, you look at the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles were dismantling teams with their front four. You saw what the Eagles did to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You saw what the Eagles did to Washington in the NFC Championship game. Not a lot of time for Jaden Daniels to sit back in the pocket and survey the field. A lot of times he had to make plays on his own with his God-given abilities. But for the Eagles, you need something up front if you're Washington to combat that. And I think for Washington to make that top priority this offseason was to get them a left tackle that could, stunt anybody on defense from getting at Jaden Daniels, on his blind side. And then to shore it up on the other side of the field, now you have the luxury of moving Brandon Coleman back to what myself and Rio have been saying for the longest time, that's his natural position. So do we have Rio back with us yet?
Yeah, I should be here right now, man. You pretty much solved 3 spots with 2 acquisitions in one off season.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. It's apparent that Adam Peters has a knack for this. I mean, he's a former scout that came through the ranks, that, was part of the New England Patriots organization, part of the Atlanta Falcons organization, part of the Denver Broncos organization. And while he was in all of these places, guess what they were doing, Rio? They were going to Super Bowls. Winning. So this guy knows what he's doing. And for all the naysayers out there who are still like they didn't get an edge rusher, I don't know what to say to you, my friends, because all I can tell you is for the 5 picks that these guys had, I mean, that's an A- draft to me. The only reason I gave them an A- because they didn't have more picks.
Yep, and you can take that minus away when you factor in the acquisitions we made with the draft picks that we didn't have, because Debo, Tunzel, and Lattimore pretty much count in the draft class for this year, man. Adam Peters told you everything you needed to know in his introductory presser when he made a pause after David Aldridge asked him about the current roster situation. He's building it up the right way, and they have the most important piece you need in football, a franchise quarterback. They don't want to be one-year wonders. They want to be a sustained contender going forward.
Yeah, so if you look at the 5 players in this pick, in this draft, the first pick, obviously Josh Connolly Jr. out of Oregon. He was left tackle there, but now he'll be a right tackle to start his career in Washington. The second pick, Trey Amos, a big physical corner from Ole Miss. This guy right here is a bigger version of Marshawn. So now you've got 2 press corners on the outside. You can move Mikey Sainristil back in the slot. I'm impressed with that pick. I loved it.
Oh, yeah, I loved it, because that's a guy that all of us would have been totally satisfied if he was the 29th pick of the draft. If he was the first-round pick, we would have all been good with it. He has long arms like tentacles, 6'1". He fits the Dan Quinn profile. Boy, have we come a long way from a secondary of Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes and Noah Igbenogany on the outside.
I mean, no offense to those guys, because we know them from being in the locker room with them. But I don't even know if there's a USFL secondary, that was worse than that. I mean, it was bad. So now you have upgrades. You have legit dogs on the outside. And those are moves that are made to compete against teams like the Eagles, of course, teams like the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb. These are all moves. And if you look at the NFC East, before we get onto the other picks, Rio, if you look at the NFC East, it seems like a lot of these first round and second round draft picks were all in mind of each other. You can't tell me Abdul Carter doesn't go to the Giants if Jaden Daniels isn't the quarterback in Washington, if Jalen Hurts isn't the quarterback in Philly.
They're gearing up for 5, Lake. They're gearing up for Jaden Daniels because they see the run he's about to go on.
I mean, the Eagles, Jihad Campbell. I mean, my goodness gracious, that's dangerous looking right there, by the way.
That's scary. That's their Jaden Daniels stalker right there. That's the spy. That's the full-time Jaden spy right there.
Yeah. So if you look at the other picks in the 3rd round, they get the speedster, Jalen Lane, wide receiver from Virginia Tech. And folks, let me tell you right now, he was the best special teams player in the nation as far as returning punts, hands down. That's what he does. He's a playmaker. He's a guy with speed. And to me, he's basically the replacement for De'Ami Brown with a little bit more versatility.
You put him in the slot. This is a guy who had one of the best combines. You're just not going to hear about it because he didn't fit the size things. But you put him in the slot. That's a 4.34 guy. 40-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump. That's an athletic demon. You give him a screen, a jet sweep, a reverse, and let him be your full-time returner. That's the fastest player on the team the day he walks in the locker room.
Absolutely. Folks, right now you're listening to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, brought to you by Crossover Meats, right here on WOL 1450 AM and 95.9 FM. I'm talking with Rio Robinson, does a great job with the Rambling with Rio podcast, one of the best content creators in town, and you can go to YouTube and check out his growing. I mean, man, the numbers are popping on the podcast, so congratulations on that.
I appreciate it, Lake, man. I love collaborating with you over the years, and I love doing this content stuff and bringing a fan perspective because we follow this team and we obsess over every detail.
Yes, you guys do. Yeah, and I've had people, obviously media people, say, man, what are you doing? You got a fan off you? I'm like, nah, this is different, man. This guy's a little different, man. He knows his stuff. So, yeah, we can move you over into the media world, man. That's what we're trying to do here. But
let's do it.
All right, so let's talk about the last two picks, and and then we'll move on to the next big subject that I want to throw out there for our listeners. And remember, folks, if you too would like to call in today, all you have to do is call in at 800-450-7876. Once again, it's 800-450-7876. All right, so the fourth pick, for the Commanders was another one that was a really good one, and they went out and got Kane Medrano from UCLA. And obviously that was a Ken Norton and Adam Peters. They're both UCLA alum, former players there. They love that guy. And when you look at the tape on him, he's fast, he's rangy, he gets to the football with bad intentions. And more importantly, he's a turnover creator. And that's something that they need.
Yeah, this was admittedly the first pick of our draft. I was not familiar with his game, but then I remembered after watching Femi Oladejo and watching Carson Swessinger that, okay, this was the guy that was flying around. He's built like a safety, but he plays linebacker, fastest linebacker at the combine in the entire draft class. Definitely a little Bruin bias when they say he was top 100 on their board, but I'll take their word for it. Team speed is something they wanted to add, and flipping the field, turning the ball over. Trey Amos had 3 interceptions. Kane Medrano forces fumbles. He's always in the right place to catch an interception. We need to make teams turn the ball over. Early in his career, he's going to moonlight as a special teams demon early in his career. He's going to be out there early on special teams before they find a way to get him out in the field on defense.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm curious now because of that pick. A guy like Dominique Hampton, who last year they took from Washington State as a converted safety, and now he's playing linebacker. They're basically saying, we're going to throw athletes out there and just let them get to the football. Let them get to the football with really bad intentions. And I think that's another pick with Medrano. He fits the build for that. So the fifth pick and final pick for the Commanders, they took a running back, a much-needed running back as far as one that has speed. And I'm really impressed with Krosky Merritt. I really think that he's a guy that Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, I think he's going to be a guy that has a chance to hit the field this year. What were your thoughts on that pick?
I was so happy because not only did we take a running back, we took a running back we met with, and we took a running back that I was very interested in. He's like the only guy I wanted in the 7th round of this class because this isn't your typical 7th round running back. The only reason he's being taken at 245 is because he was ineligible after one game this season at Arizona. But we saw what he put on tape at New Mexico. This is a big play guy, closed out his last full season with multiple 200-yard games. He has jump cut ability, lateral agility, and his stop-and-go deceleration and acceleration is elite. I've seen someone say he has the best contact balance in the draft after Ashton Genty. That is big praise for a guy we got at 245.
All right, man. Well, look, Rio, this is radio. Everything moves quickly, man. So greatly appreciate you coming on. We got to get you on again. Anytime you want, you got a home here to come on. So, and for our listeners out there, I'm sure you will see me on Rio's program this week. So, we'll chop it up a little bit more in depth. But yeah, man, as always, I appreciate you calling on. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me. Keep killing it, Lake.
All right. Thanks, brother. All right. So let's bring in, we have another caller right here. We have Michael Barrett joining us. What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Brother Lake, how are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. Just, loving life, living the wave on the wave of success for this Commanders team. First time in my professional career covering just diehard winners.
Oh, man, it takes getting used to it. Are you getting used to it, or are you still pinching yourself, brother?
Nah, man, I'm used to it now, man. The way they treat us out there at the facility is just first class, and to have relationships with the guys, not just players. I've always had the relationships with the players, but I'm talking coaches and front office people now. Those are the people in the past under the Snyder regime. They didn't even want to talk to you. So now it's totally different. They treat you like family. So I'm loving life right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can see it's night and day. You have Graham and Candy and yourself. And it's just a breath of fresh air. But winning cures everything, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's just Josh Harrison and those folks. You can just tell, like you said, it's a family feel. The fans, everyone just feels invited. Everyone's back as far as the alums are concerned. I'm happy, man. In 2030, we're gonna pop the champagne.
Yeah, man. You just gotta make sure you play it safe and make sure we get to that day, because it's gonna be something, man, to see a brand new spanking shiny stadium back in my hometown of D.C. I'm so looking forward to it, man. It's we're both old enough to remember those good old days, man. Just and frankly, I don't know if you're like me, but I used to get tired of talking about it to the younger people, because they were like, man, you sound like my father, like an old dude, always harping on the same thing. Well, finally, it's real. It's a real thing, and not just that they're coming back into the city. They're coming back to the sacred grounds of RFK. You just can't beat that.
I mean, it's a way to connect generations. So folks like Rio, who was just on, we get to celebrate something together instead of telling him about the way it used to be. Oh, man, I wish you were there in the 80s. I know he's tired of hearing that.
Oh, man. You have no idea how many young people are like, man, stop. It's like you throwing it in our face. Well, guess what? They experienced the NFC Championship game last year, and although they lost that football game, you saw the pandemonium coming back. You saw people shutting down, and I try to tell people all the time, you remember the day in this town when Washington was getting ready to play Dallas, or their playoff game was coming up. You literally couldn't function for the week leading up to that game. It was like the city shut down. Like everyone was anticipation, and now I feel like that's what's coming back now. And this time around, it's a little different, Michael, because as we've talked about before, this group this time has a franchise player at quarterback. They never had that when they were winning those Super Bowls. They had really good quarterbacks, but they didn't have a franchise quarterback. That's why they won 3 with 3 different quarterbacks.
That's correct. Yeah, it feels like it's gonna be sustained this time. Absolutely. So, man, I'm happy. I'm happy that we were second in a year where there were a plethora of quarterbacks to choose from, and I think we got one, man. I think we really got one. The kid is smart. He has the ability. I mean, we just cross our fingers on health. That's the only ingredient we can't totally control. But outside of that, man, we're going to have him for a long. The only downside is he's an older rookie, right? So
well, I mean, it's not that bad. I think he's 24, soon to be 25. That's not bad.
I want 3 more years. So we're thinking, okay, can we stretch him to 40?
We'll put it like this: by the time this new stadium comes around, he'll be literally 30 years old. So, and that's like 29, 30. He'll be hitting his prime because he's 24 now. So he'll be hitting his prime by then, and which could be a good thing. I mean, they could be ushering in, how about that stadium opens and they hang a banner in there from winning the Super Bowl the year before?
Oh, Oh, you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
You never know,
Man,
my friend. You never know.
It would be lovely. I'm glad to see JD there to support the Caps. He knows. He should know now. This is a football town.
It's his town.
We're going wild for the Caps.
It's his town.
Oh,
this guy
goodness.
has more love than the president, and rightfully so. That's another story. But yeah, just in general, we're gonna keep that there. But look, my friend, I got to get ready to wrap this one up, man. But as always, I appreciate the love, and we got to get you back on soon, man.
Yes, sir. Good talking to you, Lake. Keep up the good work. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, thanks so much. Now, take care. Folks, these are the people that support me, man. And I greatly appreciate it over the years. All the fans out there that always showed me love. I always say, man, I'm gonna open it up for them to come on my platforms and try to help them. So, yeah, we got about 2 minutes left in today's program. See, time flies when you're having fun, and we have fun when we do this show. Remember, it's the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, brought to you by Crossover Meats. They're delivering bold flavor, better nutrition, and convenience at a price people can afford. You can go to crossovermeats.com for more information. Look, one of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick before we got off the air was, you look at Josh Harris, you look at this ownership group, and you look at all the great things that they've done over the past year and a half. I think it was, July 23 when the actual sale and purchase of the team came through. Since then, he's gone out and brought in a quality general manager, something the organization had been lacking for years. They have a quality coach, something that had been lacking for years. They have a franchise quarterback, something that had never been around. They brought the fan base back. Okay, they go to the NFC Championship, something hadn't been done in 30-something years. And now they get a new stadium. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to leave it at that before we part. Josh Harris is who Dan Snyder was supposed to be. A homegrown person that understands the value of really doing right by the fan base of this great franchise, and also doing right by the players in the building. And now you've got the perfect storm for success. So you've got to give Josh Harris all the credit in the world for doing this thing the right way, doing it first class. And I think because of that, the Commanders are on their way. I'm looking forward to this year. So, folks, we got to wrap up today's show. Appreciate you joining as always. You can check out the Lake Lewis Jr. Show on YouTube. Also, you can subscribe to it on all your major podcast carriers. Have a good one, my friends.